Welcome to the Furrows podcast, a podcast where we talk to people who have been transformed by classical education. My name is Ryan Klopak. I'm the Director of Executive Search over at Arcadia Education. And I'm joined by my co-host, Alex Julian, the Director of the Classical Baccalaureate with CLT.
Nice work.
Thank you. Good. Alex, who do we have on today?
Okay, so for those of us tuning in, that was take 3. And we'll put takes 1 and 2 in the bloopers, but
we'll see.
It's important.
We might have lost it.
That is a big intro. It's important to recognize that, and it doesn't have to go perfectly. My favorite podcasts are where they like get it wrong and they're like, keep it.
It's not that hard though.
Well, some days it is, and that's all right.
Some days it's hard.
So we're joined by Matt Skinner, who was a longtime head of school at Heritage in Atlanta, Georgia, which is a really prestigious Christian classical school. And now he does some really solid consulting work, but we'll wait to the end to talk about that. And we usually forego any extensive bio, since the whole point of this podcast is to dig into the life of the individual. So, Matt, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. I appreciate it.
I got to know Matt through some of my work at Arcadia before joining CLT, and especially doing coaching events with the Herzog Institute, and was just really impressed by Matt's ability to storytell. I don't know if that just comes with being a Southerner, like storytelling. Yeah, that's where the good stories come from. But nonetheless, we'd love to dig into some of that today, Matt. So, if we could start with just kind of your early educational journey, I know there's kind of a turning point for you where you got into education and never thought you would, but maybe just like, who were you as a student? What did you think success was going to look like? What were you going to do as a job? Before we talk about you and education as an adult.
Yeah. Well, I grew up, in Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, a little town called Euless, Texas. Grew up in a Christian household, and came to faith very early. At least made a profession of faith very early. I'll never forget going into my mom's bedroom and telling her I wanted to accept Christ, and kneeling beside her bed and praying that. And then, going through the next, I was probably 9 at that time. So going through the next probably 10 years, kind of in and out, and not out necessarily as much as maybe a little bit less committed than other times, and certainly sowed my own wild oats. So, but always a good student. Never had to work that hard in school, and was able to have grades. I had good grades. Had success in the classroom. Had success outside of the classroom in extracurricular activities, and so really enjoyed growing up. But I would never say that I was fully committed to Christ. You always hear this, he's your Savior, but is he really your Lord? And I can certainly attest to that sentiment. And so I was a very successful athlete in high school. So I went to Rice University to play football and baseball. And I went to Rice because it was a high academic institution. And a little bit of that probably goes back to some insecurity on my part of being perceived as your typical jock. And I wanted to kind of had other opportunities to go elsewhere to much more athletic-minded institutions, but chose Rice because of the academics and wanted to really make sure that because that was important to me. And so went to Rice as a football player, and I really don't know what my my academic advisor was thinking, because I took 21 hours that first semester while playing football.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was just dumb.
Yeah.
And I didn't know any better. So needless to say, I did not do well. I struggled academically. I went into mechanical engineering because that was what my father did. And I really, I admired my dad. And even though this is kind of the blip in the radar, was he divorced my mom, I think when I was about 18, 19 years old. So about the same time he was living apart from my mom. But I still admired his work ethic. I mean, my dad, I've never met a man that worked harder than him. Very stoic individual. But so I wanted to go into mechanical engineering, and which was another really stupid idea, to take 21 hours while playing football and starting mechanical engineering. And so I failed pretty miserably that first semester and did not do well. I was not really prepared because school had become so easy during my high school times. I went to public school, and it was just way too easy. I never had to study. I didn't know what studying really was other than the night before a test. And so went there and just kind of flamed out. Did not do well academically. Did not do well on the athletic field. I was not focused on either. I was probably more focused on a girl that I met, and really just kind of went down from there. But after that first semester of football, I switched my scholarship to baseball and started playing baseball there, and didn't get much better. So for the next year, I played baseball, but I kind of never forget I think it was October, November of my sophomore year. I was just kind of down in the dumps. Wasn't doing well in anything. And I was living with a couple of baseball players right across the street from the school in a house. And up in the cabinet, there was a fifth of Jack Daniels. And it was a Friday. And I said, you know what, I'm going to drink that whole thing. And I did. Went out and made a fool of myself. Really just probably the bottom of just kind of being into the miry pit. And I'll never forget the next morning waking up hungover, depressed, and just at my wit's end because I'd always had success. And I woke up and I just cried out to God. I said, God, this is not who you made me to be. I know better than this. And I'm asking you to reach down and pull me out of this. And now, whether or not I was a believer at that time, I think is still debatable. I made a profession of faith. I certainly studied God's Word. I certainly was in and out. Had a very active youth ministry that I was engaged with. But certainly at that moment in time, I became a follower of Jesus Christ. And the transformation took place at that time. Because of all of that, I decided to move back home and really kind of recenter my life. So I moved back home, gave up my scholarship, and whether you could argue that I quit before they kicked me out academically. So, but I went back home, enrolled at Tarrant County Junior College. Small little junior college. I had given up on my dream, really, of playing any type of professional sport, and just decided I just got to get my life right. So then I decided, to do that, and I was paying more attention. I was doing better in school. Obviously, Tarrant County Junior College is not the level of academics that Rice University is, and certainly. At that time, I thought maybe architecture was what I needed to do, and that was much easier than mechanical engineering. So, and then I got a call from the University of Texas Arlington baseball coach, and he said, "Hey, one of my teammates from high school was playing for UTA, and he'd heard that I'd come home. He said you need to give Matt a call." And he said, "Would you be interested in coming to play?" And I, like I said, I'd given up. I thought I was done. But through God's providence, through God's graciousness, I was allowed to do that. So I went to UTA. That's where I finished. Ended up transferring into accounting. Got my accounting degree. Enjoyed a very successful baseball career there at UTA. Ended up getting drafted and playing a year of minor league ball. I hated it. The way I've always described that is I loved high school football, hated college football, loved college baseball, hated minor league baseball. So, and I'd met a girl that before I went off to play minor league ball, I'd met a girl on a ski trip at that church youth ski trip, our college department ski trip, that I had just gotten a call from my youth pastor and said, hey, I want you to come on this. I got an opening. Somebody's already paid. They can't go. Would you want to come? I said, sure. That was like a week before the trip. Unbeknownst to me, there was a girl in my youth group also, or college group, that had a sister that, same thing, they had an opening, so she invited her sister. And when her sister walked onto the bus for that 16-hour journey from Dallas to I think it was Breckenridge, I said I was smitten. I can tell you today exactly what she was wearing, and tell you everything about her. By the time I ended that trip, that 16 hours trip, I was sitting next to her and having a conversation with her. And I told my youth pastor that night that we got there the first night, and we were in the room, and I said, look, I'm going to marry that girl. Nice. And I was fortunate enough. She had to figure it out. She wasn't ready, but I knew that I was. But anyway, that was how Tracy and I met. We've been married for 39 years now, going on be celebrating 40 years this year. So, so kind of that's my spiritual journey and kind of my academic journey up until that point. And so I became a CPA and went to work for the big firm in Dallas. Got transferred out to Charlotte. And just really hated the large practice of accounting. And we were in Charlotte, went to one of my partner's Christmas parties, and just being there and seeing the I'm not going to say it was debauchery, but it was certainly not in line with what we would consider Christianly behavior. I just decided that this isn't what I wanted to do. And so tried a couple of things and then started my own practice, came back home to Houston, Texas. That's where Tracy grew up, and started my own CPA practice at that time with a focus and a niche on doctors' practices. And so did that. That was, I think that was 1991. And began to build that practice and got that going and moved to, we wanted to live out in the country. We had a daughter at that time, and we had two daughters at that time, actually, and decided to move to outside of San Antonio, Texas, in a little place called Bulverde, Texas. And just really built our dream home out on 5.5 acres out in the hill country. Beautiful. Loved it. And just was really enjoying. Had our last child, my son, and just loving life and enjoying it. My daughter was enrolled at Bracken Christian School, and because I was a CPA, I had a friend of mine who was on the board, and he kind of got me involved with some of the financials, helping out with the financials. Ended up getting onto the board of that school. And in October of 1995, we went to a board retreat. I think it was my first retreat of the first year that I went to the board retreat. It was all day on a Saturday. And the opened it up, and the headmaster at that time, Robert Ganaway, announced that he was leaving Bracken at effective December 31st. He was moving into the pulpit ministry. You can't really get mad at somebody when they're going into ministry, so you just kind of, okay, that's great, Robert. But who's going to take over? Who do you have somebody on staff that can step in an interim basis and so forth?
And he just joined the board at that time?
It was less than a year of service at that time. Yeah.
Okay, so I think there's a turning point coming here into education. Yeah. So I want us to dig into some of the stuff you were talking about, because there's
so much
much good stuff. So just from the sports angle for a second, just because I'm curious, what was it about high school football versus college football and college baseball versus minor league baseball, where, because part of what I've heard as a theme is there's you know what you like and you really know what you don't like, you know, and it's not about growth or not growth. It just seems like it's about healthy growth, or like you're not going to be able to grow in a certain situation versus you are. So I'd love to hear more about that.
I think part of it's a little bit of immaturity on my part, in not being really focused and really giving my all to something, and that's one of the things. This is going to sound really egotistical. I don't really mean it to be, but I was good in a lot of different things. I was good academically. I was good in sports and so forth, and so I wasn't. It wasn't absolutely tantamount that I became successful in this, because that's the only thing that I could do.
Sure.
And so there was always an exit route. There was a parachute that I could take. And so in college, football became a job. In high school, it was a blast. It was just fun. It was a sport. It's what you did. And I loved it. In college, it became really, really a job. And the joy of playing the sport left. And that could be because the linebackers were, 6'3", 240 pounds, could run 4.5 40s, and when they hit you, it really, really hurt.
Yeah. What position were you playing?
I was playing quarterback.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
At Euless, right?
At Euless Trinity, and then at Rice. So anyway, and then when you go in college baseball is just a blast too. I mean, you've got a team, you're traveling on the bus at times and doing things and just enjoying life. I had really good friends on the team who were strong believers, and that really, really helped. And then when you go to the minor leagues, you're going to hear the same refrain. It becomes really a job. Mm-hmm. I mean, in that first summer league, we were there for 79 days, and we had 78 games and no double headers. And so it just became drudgery. And there's probably, not probably, I'm sure there is some method to the madness to kind of weed it out. It's kind of like the Army, breaking you down. And I just didn't enjoy it anymore. And the fact that I was probably hitting 217 didn't help either. So, but anyway, so
what was your position in baseball?
Well, I was a shortstop up into college, and then I switched to catcher in college, and then played catcher in the minors. Yeah,
that's a lot of days to be kneeling down constantly.
Yeah, I'm suffering from that right now. In fact, I go next Monday to find out when my knee replacement surgery is going to be.
Oh man, sorry. Hey, you're just like a professional baseball athlete then. Like all the professional catchers are dealing with the same thing.
Well, that's very true.
I just turned 40, and I was watching the David Beckham documentary, and by the time he was getting close to 40, he just couldn't play soccer anymore. And I was like, look, Beckham and I are the same. Mm-hmm. At 40,
you guys have so much in common.
Neither of us can play
crazy.
Professional soccer.
That was every time I see you, Alex, and have a conversation, I say, you and David Beckham. Mm-hmm. I mean,
it's uncanny.
The parallels are unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. The older we get, the more similar we get.
Matt, I wanted to ask you, so one of the things that I was noticing was you have a lot of things that you're good at, and you're doing them all at the same time, but it doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of integration with each other. Like, it seems like academics and athletics are in competition with each other. Your work and your spiritual life sometimes in competition with each other. I'm curious. I don't know if this is the case, but just I'm wondering, did you find that there was intersection between those times that you were happy and the times you felt like there was an intersection with something else to make it more whole rather than just say work?
Yeah.
I think that's a great question, Ryan.
Thank you.
That's why he's on the podcast.
Well, obviously, we have to have
snipe.
somebody that can ask good questions.
Yes, thank you for acknowledging that. Beckham is more here for the looks. Someone's got to manage the team.
I think a lot of times we fall into that as Christians, that compartmentalization, living that bifurcated life of the sacred and the secular, not really bring them together. Yep. And certainly that, I think that's really true of immature young believers, and that was certainly true of me. It was hard for me to really begin to understand that my calling and my work and my or maybe not calling at that time, but whatever God was preparing me for, and my spiritual life should have been in sync. That they're one and over. There's no separation between that. And I think a lot of times I thought that. I kind of acted like that. That this is over here and this is over here. And it wasn't until really later in life, and really growing in my own spiritual relationship with the Lord, that I began to see that there's no separation. That everything that I'm called to do is to be done unto the Lord and for His glory, and that began. I think that's where you begin to see me begin to walk in what I'm supposed to be doing during those early years of my marriage and our life. Just really growing unbelievably spiritually because of some great teachers in my life at that particular time that poured into me. And so by the time that I get to this point at Bracken, I had a much fuller idea of what life was, and that there was no compartmentalization. That it was very much God had orchestrated all of these things and called you into all of these things. And it didn't matter if I was, out mowing the lawn or if I was teaching a Sunday school class. It was the same.
You'd said that, you didn't know if you were a believer at that, kind of up to that point where you finally called out to God, and were trying to rely on Him, since the other things you were relying on just weren't working. Was that a turning point for you spiritually, or were there a few? Did it take a while longer where you would say, "No, I truly was a believer" after that?
No, it was an absolute, road to Damascus type of experience. There was no doubt from that moment forward. I took my spiritual life seriously. I took studying God's Word seriously. And surrounded myself with people who were going to encourage that, not discourage that. And so that was very much the turning point. The most seminal turning point in my entire life was that point, because it was because of that point that then I had the opportunity to enjoy some of the things, and probably my second biggest blessing, which is meeting Tracy and getting to marry her, and the incredible helpmate and encouragement and admonisher, which she's that I've had in my life. She's my North Star. She keeps me focused, keeps me centered, keeps me grounded. Anytime I get ahead of myself, anytime I get full of myself, which is a lot, she's there to say, "Hey, you need to pull it back."
Were there moments, whether it's in athletics, and this is like pre-Damascus moment, in athletics or in your time at school, where you maybe felt the pinpricks of the divine making its way into your picture?
Yeah.
If so, what were some of those moments that you remember?
Yeah, I think the incredible conviction of the Holy Spirit on activities that I was engaged in, I would feel that, and then I would shove them back down. It was, and then I had a youth pastor, Keith Moore. Love him to death. He was a reason I moved to Atlanta, and he just kept pouring into me, kept praying for me, kept catching me at youth group. And I'll never forget one of the, and this is why I don't know that, that road to Damascus, if it was a salvation point or just a sanctification point, major sanctification point. Because throughout my junior high years and high school years, I had really, really great Bible teaching. I had really great people speaking into my life. And I'll never forget, I still remember it today, we had a weekly Bible study with Keith, and going through some studies. I still remember filling out the Discipleship Now, notebook and all of those things. So there was a spiritual component, and God was continuing to work on me. But I also think that, there's a big, big difference between, like I said, and there's some theological arguments to be made here, whether or not you can have God as your, Christ as your Savior and not as your Lord. But there was certainly, he didn't become Lord until that Damascus, that moment at Rice.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like that integration piece is something that plagues a lot of people. It's interesting that your story, I've got a similar story in terms of going off to college and flaming out and being like, what is this even for? What am I doing here? And then I remember reading recently that the freshman dropout rates at major universities are at all-time highs. But also the number of kids graduating from high school with a 4.0 are at all-time highs.
Yep.
So it's like, clearly this experience is not something that's only happened to you or happened to me. And I'm just curious, like, what you would, advise to young people, but it seems to be disproportionately men who are dropping out of college. Like, what do you advise to them to get things right kind of before they're graduating high school or as they're going off and leaving home?
Yeah, I can attribute it to, my educational experience was not rigorous at all. I didn't experience failure. And I think that's probably one of the biggest learning tools that we have in our toolbox as educators, is to create failure for our students, to create resilience, to create grit, to create perseverance, because I did not have that. And I think I think a lot of people, or some people, their personality is such that they're able to create that, and that's kind of who they are. They're just kind of a bulldog. They're going to work through it. But I also think we as educators, especially as fathers and parents, and this is where I really zero in on parents, is you're doing no favors to your children by removing obstacles in their life.
Yeah.
And ensuring, I get this all the time. I don't want my child taking this class because they need to maintain an A. We want them to have A's, and this is going to be too hard. It's going to challenge them too much. And that is just so destructive long term for them. And I think, this is what we would tell our students at Heritage Preparatory School and tell parents when they were interviewing, is our goal is for your child to fail and have to learn to pick themselves up off of that and move past that. Because if we don't do that and they experience it for the first time in college, that's going to be really, really difficult. And it was born out of my own personal experience.
Yeah.
That was very much a personal thing that I was bringing into that that. And so it's really, are you experiencing any failure in life? If you're not trying things that are hard enough.
Yep.
And I'm not saying failure morally or failure academically. I'm talking about just failure itself of having to press through something, to persevere through something, to overcome some obstacle.
Yeah.
Is just so valuable, and we just don't do that in school now. I mean, parents work their tail off. You have these snowplow parents that are just snowplowing the path before their kids, making sure that they got the clearest, easiest, straightest, smoothest path possible, and it just, I think it's destroying. I've said this many times. This is where I got to be careful. This next generation that we're seeing now coming and becoming parents.
Yep.
I think of the longitudinal studies that we're going to be doing from the late 89, early 90s through now. It's going to really, really create an incredibly interesting picture of people who grew up with all of their obstacles removed before them. Well, I don't even think it's a longitudinal study. I think we can see that in society today, especially with our youth. These young college students who think that everything has to be easy and everything should be given to them, and we need to get free tuition. We don't have to pay back our loans. I know I don't want to go off on a political spectrum here, but it's just this mindset that we have that everything should be given to you and I'm entitled to it. It's that entitlement culture that we have.
Matt, so we grew up in the same area, so I'm curious if you saw similar things. Do you remember there was a specific church basketball league that was a really big thing in the 90s? You're laughing, you know what I'm talking about. So I went through it. So there's this very special basketball league in which there's no score. You can't play zone defense. You can only play man-to-man, which means really you have to turn the strategic part of the game off. And it is all about making sure that everyone feels like they win at the end. And I know this it's just such a stereotype and it's just very on the nose to say this, that, everybody gets their trophy. But I remember a big ceremony at the end of the season where everyone got a trophy. And I remember coming out the other side so frustrated, so dissatisfied, and so aimless. But I remember one of the elements that was removed from this, taking away the failure piece, was there was never anything on the line.
Yeah.
So when something came on the line, I was terrified.
Yeah.
And that it wasn't just that I, was weak and needed to learn how to fail and toughen up a little bit. I also needed to know that existentially things would be okay if there was risk involved with life, or that I could put something on the line because it's needed, and I'll be okay if I fail. So I'm curious if you see that too, that loss of courage with this new generation.
Oh, absolutely. I think we are a totally risk-averse society now. And I'm not bashing people who wear helmets, but we have elbow guards and knee guards and helmets and all of these things that we put on our kids because we don't want them to scrape their knee. And I just remember as a young kid, there was nothing like that. We just went out and we played, and we rode our bikes, and we wrecked, and we broke bones, and we skinned ourselves, and it's just what you did. We live in a society now that wants to remove all of risk, and if there is any risk given, then we want to assign blame to somebody else when something does happen. We live in an absolute blame shifting culture, no one wants to accept responsibility and accountability for their own actions. And I think it's absolutely no doubt whatsoever that it is a direct result of how we have raised this generation and how we changed. I'm not saying that you shouldn't put helmets on your kids when they're riding a bicycle or skateboarding or whatever. I just think that we've lost somehow, one, the wonder of play. Everything's got to be structured now. And two, the risk involved and learning to manage risk in your own, in your ecosystem. I had to make calculations whether or not I was going to jump out of that tree. I had to make calculations whether or not I was going to make that jump on the bicycle over the ramp that in our Matchbox cars that we put down. How many Matchbox cars could we jump? But yeah, absolutely. And you're going to get me going off on a completely different topic here in a moment. But I get really, really animated when we talk about this. And you know, I love my daughter. She's got. We have 3 grandkids. She sent us a picture of their youngest, and he had a big old bruise on his cheek. And not that I want him to be bruised, not that I want them to hurt. But man, what's he going to learn from that? Yep. I mean, that is, I don't want him to get hurt permanently. At the same time, pain is really, really instructive.
Yeah.
And so, anyway.
Yeah,
I can't help but wonder if this is there. We talk a lot about why our boys struggle in school or why they're going through a burnout when they get to college. But I think this probably has a lot to do with why boys just kind of tune out because there's nothing on the line. Like really, they know there's no risk involved here.
Yeah, and the environment's being created that way and perpetrated that way. The other thing is I think it leads to crazy amounts of anxiety because if you're not allowed to take risks, well, there's risks all around you all the time. Yeah, I mean, then it's like, now I can't ever fail. You know, what my parents have told me is like, I can't actually fail. And so I think parents create a lot of anxiety for their kids. And I think anxiety is related. I think, there's a lot you could say about anxiety, but I think at least a form of anxiety is not giving over to God what is God's and holding it tight.
Yep.
You know, and it's like part of being willing to fail or be hurt or take a left turn here and see where it leads is faith that that's the sort of path God is putting you on. And that the way you want your life to go and the way God wants your life to go are very different.
Yeah.
So it seems to me like there's not a lot of space to really give things over to God as your Lord by the time you're headed to college, because parents have said, no, college is God in a way, you know? Yeah. And we need to listen to them.
But you know, at the same time, I grew up in a culture that did allow risk, and we did, and I still went off to college and really blew it. And part of it was a maturity issue. I was just turned 18 when I went off, to college. I wasn't held back. I wasn't a redshirt senior like a lot of these kids are nowadays.
Sure.
That their parents hold them back. But part of it is I look back on that time. There's a lot that I regret, but I can see where God used all of those things to mold me and shape me into the person I am today.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful for it, even though I flamed out and it was a complete failure as a human being at that time. I'm grateful that the Lord was able to take me through that and not necessarily take me, allow me to go through that, because it made me who I am today. It gives me the passion around some certain things that I have passion about.
Well, it's great. I think this is a perfect segue to jump kind of into the second half of the story, because I want to hear, circle back to when you are head of school at Heritage, how you tried to create an experience that was different than the one you had, in which you weren't, being challenged, in which there wasn't any failure. So yeah, if you'll pick up back where you left off, with your head of school going into ministry
That's great.
on the board, that'd be great.
Yeah. So, like I said, we were at that board retreat, and Robert announces he's not coming back. We asked him if he had anybody that could step in, and he said, "Actually, I do. I've been praying about this, and God has given me a name." And we're saying, "This is great. Who is it?" And he said, "Well, I think it's Matt." And Robert had never said a word to me, not even intimated it to me. Like I said, I'd been involved a little bit with the school, helping out with some financial stuff. And I had a friend of mine on the board at that time. He said, "Matt, I would have given anything to have a picture of you in that moment." I was just like, "What?"
Matt the CPA?
Yeah, God. Yeah. Matt the CPA, Matt the father of three who just built his dream home, Matt the got his practice up and running, got it to the point where it was Jen, and I just like, yeah. Well, he hasn't told me that, and but as the Holy Spirit often does, He begins to start things in you, and thought about it through the rest of that day. This is before the ubiquitous cell phone, and so I get home that evening. I take my wife out to dinner and tell her the story. And I'll never forget it. We're sitting at Zero's Hamburgers in Bulverde, Texas. And I tell her that, and she said, "Matt, I think you ought to do it." And I thought that was the absolute opposite of what I was going to get, because and I love my wife. She's a strong Texas woman. And but she had an idea of what she wanted to marry, and it wasn't a teacher, a coach, or a pastor. And so I was just, the second time I was in shock that day when she said, "I think you ought to do it." And there are times I think that she's regretted that moment over the last 30 years, but it's been an incredible ride. So anyway, so that's what really initiated me into that. I stood before a faculty of 40, 45 people, faculty and staff at Bracken Christian on January 2nd, 1996, having never stepped into a school other than as a student. And I didn't know what to say other than the only thing that the Lord gave me at that time was Matthew 6:33, that if we seek Him and His kingdom and His righteousness, all of these other things will be added to us. And that I held on to that with everything that I could, because that's the only thing that I could, because I had no clue what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And they were gracious enough to give me grace and to move into that. And it probably wasn't 2 or 3 months into it that I said, "This is what God has called me to do. This is my holy discontent. This is what all of the preparations with the CPA, with the business training, with the teaching of Sunday school, the incredible discipleship that I had received over those previous 8 years. It was no doubt that this was God was preparing me for, and I found out what God had called me. That was my calling.
So how did you know? What were some moments that made that clear that this is it?
Ryan, I think it was just the incredible fulfillment that I had in stepping in, working with high schoolers, working with students, just being engaged in their life, being able to lean into it. I'd always thought, after I really, really began to grow, how do I maximize my impact? And this was a way that I said, man, I can make an impact. I can have an influence on kids' lives. I can speak into it and really have an influence there. So I think it was that. It was just kind of understanding and being prompted by the Holy Spirit and guided by the Holy Spirit to understand that this is what He's made me for.
Yeah, that's got to be the case, because 2 or 3 months into being a headmaster or head of school, most people are not thinking.
Yeah.
That they're flying high.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's.
Yeah, they've experienced the other side of the divine.
Yeah.
But it was an incredible time. I'll never forget it. But the journey is not over, because 6 years, 7 years later, 8 years later, 9 years later. I'm sorry. No, it's 6 years. I'm sorry. I think that I'm being called in the pulpit ministry, and because I enjoy really teaching and preaching, and I had an opportunity. This is where my youth pastor comes into play. He was looking for an executive pastor in his church, Braylon Baptist Church at the time. Now it's Dogwood, and said, and was looking for an executive pastor. And I was out in Covenant College finishing up my master's program. Master's of Education program, and we got together and we talked about it, and I ended up going out there thinking that this is what God is calling me into, and this is the executive pastor position. I get to apply my business skills, I get to apply my leadership skills, but I also get to be able to preach at times and teach. And I'll be honest with you, if it was 2 weeks or 2 months, I don't know, but it became very clear that this was not what God had called me into. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts that God can give us, is to let us see what we're not supposed to be doing, so He can remove that distraction from you. And so I was fortunate enough that the Landmark Christian School, the school that my kids were going to at that time, was looking for a head of school. And this is God's providence. This is God. I just love it. The individual that was the chair of the search committee for the executive pastor was also the chair of the search committee for the head of school at Landmark Christian. And so I went to him and said, "This is what I'm thinking. I want to get back into Christian education." And he said, "Well, Matt," he goes, "if you had not accepted the executive pastor role, I would have pursued you for our head of school." He goes, "So why don't you put application in?" Fast forward, I was fortunate enough to be selected for that. Started at Landmark Christian School as head of school on April 14th, 2003, my 40th birthday. And I'll never forget it. I felt like Moses. Moses' life is in 40-year chunks. And so got to go to Landmark, a much bigger school, a lot more complicated, a lot more complex, and was able to really just kind of step in and learn. Much more sophisticated board, lots of business experience, Chick-fil-A executives that I got access to, and really learned leadership. I sat under my board president was Mark Miller, who is an accomplished author and leadership author, and he mentored me, really spoke into me, really leaned into me, really poured into me, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Where was Landmark at, Matt?
That's in Fairburn, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta.
Okay, so you did you move from Texas?
Yeah.
To go there.
I left Texas and moved to Peachtree City, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. Nice. And that was in 2002.
And how long were you there before moving on to? Was Heritage the next stop?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
There's a couple more stops in here.
Yeah.
So my story, I go to Landmark. The kids graduate. All my kids graduate from Landmark.
Yep.
And for lots of reasons, we wanted to make a change. And I love to play golf. My wife loves the beach. Hilton Head Christian Academy called. And we're saying, okay, we're going. And so we went down there. We were really enjoying it. But my mother-in-law, my wife's mom, passed away back in Texas. And so we decided, she just called me up in tears and said, "Hey, I want to get back to Texas for my dad." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, let's start praying about it. And let's seek it. And I'm going to make a list of schools because we're going to be very selective." And so I literally went through all the schools in Texas, pulled up all the 990s, researched them. And I wanted to get, at this time, I wanted to get into classical. I'd been in traditional schools. up until that point. Both
We'll need to circle back to that.
Yeah, Bracken, Landmark, and Hilton Head were all traditional Christian schools.
How did you know that you wanted to get into classical?
Well, that was through my master's at Covenant College. I came across a book, Recovering the Lost Tools of Learning, read it, and I became really intrigued with this model. And so that's what I ended up doing my master's thesis on at Covenant, was on classical Christian education.
Oh, nice.
And really poured myself into it. And what I tried to do was bring some of those components of classical education into my traditional Christian schools. And as we know, that doesn't work.
Yeah,
It's two completely different methodologies and pedagogies. And so got frustrated. And I knew that when I went back to Texas, I wanted to go to a classical Christian school. So I made a list, I think 4 or 5 classical Christian schools in Texas that I would consider. And I kid you not, 1 month later to the date, I get a call from Heritage Christian in Fredericksburg, Texas, asking if I would consider coming there. And so,
without you having to talk to them,
I never contacted them. They out of the blue reached out to me.
Nice.
Okay,
and by the way, they were one of the 4 that I had on the list.
That's great.
So I still want to go back into that discovery phase because there's something in the lost tool. Well, do we even have time? Is this where we say
no?
We gotta do part 2?
We got 15 minutes. We got like 17 minutes. We're gonna take an hour and 10 because we can publish however long we want.
Okay,
so we're
gonna do whatever we want. Yeah. All right. Okay, so tell me more about when you, what was it that appealed to you about Lost Tools of Learning? I mean, there's something that grabbed your attention so much so that you had to write your master's thesis about it. I mean, was there a paradigm flip in there somewhere? What did you find?
I think probably more than anything, it was this idea that we were going to teach the whole child, that this is about soul formation, that this was about... And at the time, I was really intrigued by this thing called the trivium, and it made a lot of sense: grammar, logic, rhetoric, knowledge, understanding, wisdom, and how it really, I thought, mirrored what Scripture talked about, and just so that intrigued me. But I think the most thing is this idea of teaching towards virtue. And what I saw so many times in Christian schools, still see it a lot today, is Christian schools tend to take whatever the public school does. We're gonna do that. Yep. Same course sequence, same course structure, same metrics. We're going to have this AP courses, blah blah blah, and we're going to tack on chapel, and we're going to have a Bible class. And by the way, we'll have a biblically integrated concept in each class. At the end we'll talk about a Bible verse. And I thought that was just such syncretism, to be honest with you. And so the idea of classical education really intrigued me in that sense that it's more holistic, that this is, it's teaching towards virtue. It's teaching towards not what they will do one day, but who they become. And I thought that really, really excited me. Because I'm a little bit of a contrarian. If everybody's doing it this way, let's figure out a different way. Let's blow up the model. Let's start with a tabula rasa and build something unique and different from that.
It's just interesting to me that the 2 points we've really pulled on this episode so far was the virtue malformation, loss of risk, loss of courage. Mm-hmm. We're finding that here, and the disintegration problem. We're finding a solution here.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, both of those things are coming full circle with classical. I've got to give credit either in the episode description or later because I forget who said it, but he is at University of St. Thomas in Minnesota, and he wrote an article recently that said that in traditional ed or even in Christian ed, God has become the frosting on the secular cake, not the leaven. And right. And so when you were saying what you just said, it's like, if you're starting with this fundamentally non-Christian education, and then you're saying, okay, how can we shoehorn Christ in here and weave Jesus in here? It's like, there's got to be a better way, like the parable of the seeds. Like, what shouldn't the soil be thought of a little bit differently? So anyway,
and I certainly don't want to discount, especially those Christian, really strong believers who are in public school, who are doing their best to bring Christ there. What an incredible ministry that is.
Yep.
I think the bigger issue is, what are we doing as Christian schools? Are we really rethinking this and understanding this in the context,
for sure,
of a formation of a soul versus just the equipping of a mind?
Yeah, because in a Christian private space, you have a lot of freedom to be thinking about what is the best education for this kid.
Yeah.
And it's just a really human thing to say, well, I'm just going to do what I'm most familiar with, or I'm going to, I've gotten this far, I'm going to educate people the way I was educated.
Right.
And even in business practice, they say, like, do you really step back regularly and look at what you're doing and say, is this the best possible way we could be doing this?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So it seemed like that was a moment for you of transition where you said, I want to know more about this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, so these guys call you. Did people know you were looking for work and looking to move?
No, Heritage did not. They had no clue. Cheryl Eggleston, and I can't remember where we had come into contact previously. Literally just called me out of the blue, and said, "Hey, we're needing a head of school." And so went there. Was there for 3 years. I went there. They had always tried to build a gym, and they had this steel structure out there that was just the steel and a covering on a big platform that was supposed to be their gym, but they never could raise the money to build it. And I went there, and that was kind of my strategic priority, was to build that gym. So went on to a campaign to raise the money, and this is the other thing. It's just God moves so uniquely. In that campaign, in Thanksgiving of the third year that I was there, I got a call from a donor the week of Thanksgiving, and he said, "Matt, I'm going to give you this gift." What was the gift that took us over the top and cleared and allowed us to build that gym? And I just felt very strongly, and I cannot tell you, it wasn't audible, but I hung up that phone, and it was almost like God almost audibly said to me, "You're done." Within a week or two, the board chair at Heritage Prep calls and says, "Matt, I'm thinking about this new model of leadership. So we're struggling as a school. I want to try this before we give up and close the doors. And I want you to come here, operate under this, and build a high school." And that's what got me. I got to build a high school.
Yeah.
Every other school I'd had to just accept and take on and inherit. This one I got to build from scratch. And that's what excited me. That and this idea of what Woody put in place of a leadership structure, which I thought was genius as we move forward. And that's what took me back to Heritage Preparatory School in Atlanta.
Okay. So you went Georgia, Texas, and then now back to Georgia, right?
I went Texas, Georgia, Hilton Head, Texas, back to Georgia.
There it is. Yeah. Okay, good. Well,
there's our part two. We got to
do part two, but let's spend 10 minutes. Obviously we should spend an hour talking about your time at Heritage, but I'd love, at least for the rest of this part one, to just say, to just hear about what was it like building that? At least in the early days, what was it like? And then when we get you back on, we'll talk through kind of your career at Heritage.
Yeah. I think it was so much fun and so hard, really convincing people, we're not going to have bells in the school. Bells were brought directly out of the Industrial Revolution to train workers. I wanted a very highly collaborative environment for my teachers, which meant they were going to have to work harder. We were going to have to pay them more. And they were going to have to be a unique individual to really step into this. Where one of the things that drove me nuts was I'd always taught kind of a senior level Bible class, and we would just be getting into some really great discussion, and the kids are livening up and they're engaged, and the bell goes off, and the mind goes off. It's like Pavlov's dogs. They just close their books, they go to the next one. It always drove me nuts. And so my vision for this was it was going to be a dynamic day. We're not going to have bells. So if your Bible class gets engaged in this really, really in-depth conversation, you have the freedom to go an extra 20 minutes. And the next teacher is going to have to be okay with that. Or if you're in science class or whatever class you're in, if you're really engaged and you're really starting to capture the students, then you have the privilege and the honor and the freedom to move into that. And so now that doesn't always work out great. It's really a hard model to put in place, but I had teachers who bought into it, and I love that. I had a headmaster who bought into it and really stepped into that vision. And that's if I wrote out a vision document for high school before we launched, and it was all about the things that I wanted to see in this school, in this high school. And it was really my heart. I was just pouring out my heart to the Lord. And that was precipitated by a board meeting where I was going in to present the vision for high school to my board for what we were going to do. And I'll be honest with you, it was taking every other school that I'd had and just changing the name on it and calling it Heritage Preparatory School. And I'll never forget, I was sitting in the front office of Heritage. That's where I walked if I wanted to kind of get a new perspective. And I was sitting there talking to Lexi Carter. And it was like God just kind of reached down at that moment and said, "This is not what I called you to build." And I'll never forget it. I went back into my office, and that rest of that afternoon and through the night, I wrote out this vision statement. It's a lot kind of like Jerry Maguire, the mission, mission statement. But and then walked in the next day at the board retreat to tell them, and I just cast a completely different vision.
How'd that go?
Yeah,
not great. I'll be honest with you, not great.
Because so different, so many risks.
They really didn't. They didn't. It was like, yeah, Matt, we brought you in so that you do the things that you've done. And I said, guys, you brought me in so that I would do something from all the mistakes that I've learned over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And it was really trying to convincing them and creating that mind shift in them, that paradigm shift for them. I'm grateful for the trust that they had because they ended up, getting on board. But it wasn't an easy sell at all. So
were they on board with you, or were they on board with the vision? And then they learned the vision later.
I think they were on board. They trusted me, which I'm incredibly grateful for. It took some time to convince them of the vision.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it is for most people. Like, they don't want to be the vanguard. Yeah. And that's good. I mean, we need some of that, because if we're changing things all the time, if we're taking too many risks at once with kids, in a school,
we shouldn't expose our kids to risk. Really,
is it too many at once? One risk at a time.
The interesting thing, a lot of my board members, their kids ended up being the first graduating class. They were our founders club, and the constant refrain was, I love the idea, but is it going to prepare them for college?
There it is.
Because everybody talks about, I want the formation of my child's soul. until they get into high school.
Yep.
And then it's, are they going to be able to get into the University of Georgia?
Yep.
So,
I mean, this is what we talk about all the time. You know, as a former upper school headmaster, it's like we had so many parents, and no judgment on the parents, but they were so engaged K-8. I thought, this is a K-12 parent. And then they, you know, you start talking to them in 8th grade and you're like, so you're coming back next year, right? And they're like, well, you know, we're looking at the school down the road because they've got AP and they've got the big high school experience. And we don't want our kid to be a small fish in a big pond by the time they go to college. And you're like, wait, what? What happened to, and they're like, well, K-8 was great formation. You know, like we did that. We're done. So, but you clearly convinced your families to, or at least many of them, to take the risk and go through it.
Well, convincing the families was a completely different challenge, and going and moving into that. That took, I mean, we made the decision in 16 to launch the high school. We didn't launch it until fall of 2020. So I had 4 years to cast vision to prepare them to begin. And that's I tell people all the time who I'm working with, you've got to have time. You've got to have a runway to cast vision, to build up buy-in to these things. You can't just, we're going to start high school next year and start it. They have to buy into it, and it takes time to build that vision and build the ownership of it and the buy-in to it.
Well, I love that you did it because so many of our classical schools are saying, hey, we want to be something truly revolutionary, truly countercultural, truly faithful to the things we know are most important, you know, to the things the responsibilities that God's given us for our kids. And then things get difficult, and maybe a school gets a B on the state exam, you know, or you know, there's these measures you're not meeting right away.
Right.
And then you're like, ooh, we need to, what's the software we can use to go fix this? You know, or what's the normal ed thing we can do, because those guys know what to do.
Yeah.
And so quickly the compromise is made, and it's like, if you just stuck through with your vision and committed to it wholeheartedly, you know, like a good sports team, you'd be formed in what you need to be formed in and come out the other side.
That's right.
So, you know, we'll have to do, again, we'd love to do a part 2 with you if your schedule allows it.
Sure.
And
I think you guys figured out I like to talk. So
we like to listen to it.
Yeah, we like listening to you, and we think our listeners will too. So, Matt, thank you so much for being on today. And when we talk to you next, we just really want to dig into that time at Heritage and what you built, because it's a wonderful school.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Great. Ryan, you want to close this out?
I think you land the plane every time, and then you say, Ryan, you want to land the plane? I'm like, well, what am I going to do? A kickflip and make that look and sound even better? I think you landed it, man. That's the perfect place to end.
Well, this was another episode of the Furrows. I'm closing it out, and thanks for listening. Tune in next time.
All right. Welcome to the Furrows podcast, a podcast where we talk to people who have been transformed by classical education. I am joined by, let's do that again. Okay. That was bad. All right. Hi, welcome to the Furrows podcast, a podcast where we talk to people who have been transformed by classical education. My name is Ryan Klopak. I'm the director of executive search. Holy smokes!
No, this is good.
I had a whole week off and nothing's working.
No,
right.
We need to keep this one.
You should have seen me try to do it. Nope, we're doing it again.
No,
3,
Joe, keep
2,
this. Keep this version.
1.